We can never defeat lust by forcing ourselves to stop. We can't make promises to God and focus on the lust and then be able to expect it to go away. Because it says in 2 Corinthians 15, the power of sin is found in the law. So notice how when you try to stop jerking off, you try to stop lusting, it gets harder because you're focusing on that. So we have to understand that it's deeper than lust. Lust is just a symptom. Lust is not the real problem. The real problem is self-trust. The real problem is we're finding a sense of fulfillment more in lust than we are in the gospel. So we are following our thoughts, our emotions, our desires over what God is declaring. So a simple fix to lust, and obviously this is easier said than done, it's something we have to get better at over time, renewing our mind and trusting the word over our thoughts. But 2 Corinthians 5:17 says that we are new creations, the old is gone, the new is here. So one of two things we have to ask ourselves when we get a desire to jerk off, fall into lust, whatever it may be, is God lying or is my thoughts lying? Because if God is saying I'm a new creation and my old ways are gone, then I'm not a person that struggles with lust anymore. But we fall into lust still. Why? Because we refuse to believe what God declares over us. John 16:9 says, of sin because they believe not unto me. So every time we choose to believe ourselves and our thoughts over who God says we are, and that's righteous, made new, perfected, washed, sanctified, all these things, we're going to fall into sin. So we don't need to keep focusing on the sin, focusing on the lust. We need to focus on the identity. We need to focus on the belief. Am I believing in who God says I am? Or am I believing that I'm still a sinner that's trying to get better? Because as long as you think you're still a sinner trying to stop lusting, you're going to be an imperfect person trying to produce perfection. It's not going to work. But the moment you realize I couldn't stop lusting, that's why I needed a Savior, that's why Jesus died for me, that's why Jesus made me new. Now, it's no longer me living, but Christ in me. My old ways are dead. I'm alive in God through Christ, dead to sin. Now you're identifying with that. You're identifying with righteousness. You're attached to the source being Jesus. Now you're going to stop lusting naturally as a byproduct of your identity. Does that make sense?